And the American working class is still strong enough, so that there is not a large that the volunteer army is not much. People say the United States are cowards, they won't fight. Well, that's one side of it. But the other side of it is the victory from the Vietnam War years. We don't want to die on the plains of Afghanistan. We don't want to die in the deserts of Mesopotamia. So that's the first thing I want to say in terms of the composition of the class as a whole. As for the rest of it, I need to talk and listen to others, Brian.
That's fine.
The other parts of the movement. Because like I say, I'm just a yeah.
Go ahead.
Question, technically, about what your opinion about Negri and Hart's notion of the so-called biopolitical common is. The other question would be, because we're talking about activism, is how to get students, others, thinking, reading, when the world seems so highly depoliticized. That maybe this collapse, this beginning of the collapse of late capitalism, hopefully, that we're observing right now, that only the consciousness is so low that necessity must be the mother of invention. I was talking about and passing out literature as Marxist for Bush back then, because the idea was to push it faster to its demise. Marx's remark that I'm all for free markets such that they create the social antagonism that necessitates change. So my question for you is, where are the possibilities other than this small group? I don't even think we have the FBI here tonight, which is scary that they're not here, in my opinion.
What's your name again?
What?
What's your name again?
Paul Spence.
Paul. Good to hear you, Paul. But there's might be some grounds for misunderstanding here. I can see the joke of Marxists for Bush, but myself, my own experience, I've never been able to do such a thing. The only person I've seen do such a thing seriously was Eugene Genovese at the University of Rochester, the so-called Marxist who is a right-wing fascist.
He was?
He is.
He is.
He's still alive, and that's what he is, in my opinion. And I'm willing to back him. He is the one who called for Reagan. Let's vote for Reagan, Pete, because then that'll bring the revolution faster. Yeah, it'll bring a revolution against us. It'll look what terror Reagan. We can't play games with history. Marx does not play games with history. We are not engineers. The Marxists are not engineers of social life, of humanity. And that's why I've never been able to speak grandly, Paul, or theoretically. I'm not too. What I want to say is I can't speak of what'd you say, the biocommons of the planet.
Biopolitical production.
I will not. When these big theorists get up and start talking big ideas and the whole planet,
okay.
I duck.
Okay.
I duck and I run to the kitchen and I ask McKellar, and I'll do the dishes. I duck. It's frightening. To me, it's frightening. I want to be grounded. I want to be with the dumb people. I say that as a part of that was a mask that I wore for years in academia, because so much of that discussion was a discussion of opportunism, a discussion of careerism, and intelligence. The FBI may not be here in the university, but there's different intelligence has various meanings, Paul. And I think, they're happy to read what we write. We don't have to be on the payroll.
So you find Negri and Hart overly theoretical in terms of their work that way? such as a
overly
multitude.
theoretical.
Their concept of a common that is a space created both by cyberspace and the general production of all subjectivity.
My subjectivity I find more in relationship, as I said earlier, to my wife, to my brothers and sisters in the movement. That's where my subjectivity comes. It does not come from either the cell phone, which uses a huge amount of water, didn't we all read in the New York Times last week, to make a cell phone in China, the workers working 70 cents an hour, 16 hours a day. And as for our computers, the amount of water that computers consume around the planet is not known to me, but it's vast and dangerous. In other words, the conditions of production of these so-called instruments that produce the commons, I find I have many questions about them.
I agree. I'm just curious what you think.
Well, that's my probably think is probably not the right word, but that's my my kind of reaction. And then my other side to that, Paul, is this commons is a mixed term. The commons is used by the World Bank. The commons is as a way of obtaining resources and using resources for other enterprises. It's also, the commons is also used in a way to reestablish patrilinear or patriarchal relations, because to take the commons in Nigeria, who is going to organize the village commons? Which row is going to be yams? And then who's going to do the work there? Well, the men in the village, the tribal chiefs. Okay, so the World Bank often will use the commons as a means of reintroducing chieftainship or patriarchy or patriarchal relations or exploitative relations in the sign of restoring the commons. So I'm just saying it's a tricky and dangerous, and I think at our epoch now, it behooves us, when I say us now, I'm being more limited, because to think this through, to be clear about it. And it's why I want to be always grounded, and either in the struggle of the Iroquois across the river and the lakes in Branttown, or with our gardening, or our community-backed agriculture, to be this heart I don't know well enough. Negri, I had a bad experience with him once.
Mm-hmm.
Also.
Okay. No, I mean, I have the same tendencies. I was just curious what you thought. Now, the question is, how do we politicize in a highly depoliticized world right now? I've worked organizing with carpenters and worked with an activist for, since '74 when I came back from Vietnam. And I was a student here at U of M. And I find the level of discussion to be the people to be incredibly disinterested. There was a ridiculous article in the Daily about why there are no demonstrations against the war. Well, there's no draft. It doesn't affect these kids at all, Had I not been a soldier, my parents would never have been able to afford to send me to U of M. And the tuition was $450 a semester then.
It's a world-class university.
Yeah.
They're competing. It's the Harvard of the Midwest, or it's Harvard, the Michigan of the East.
But I'm saying, what are your recommendations? There's websites, these things. I've read this stuff. The things you're creating. How do we actually create that, even also out of the working class? I've worked with labor a lot. UAW, Carpenters Union, I say, organizing. They're entirely resistant, and the attitude is normally they are Reagan Democrats of a sort.
Well, you know more about it than I do. Number one. Number two. Before the book that I left at home that I should have brought with me, it's got Greek in it. It's Shelley's Defense of Poetry. Does anyone have a copy?